Court doesn't matter anymore in this country, and people violate laws anytime they want. So for me, if I violate this law, it's because I want a court to pay attention to it. And there is nothing more important than counting votes.
Well, this is a county commissioner in Pennsylvania. I think it's Bucks County, and she's referring to the recount of the Senate race between the two senators. You have Dave McCormick and Bob Casey. McCormick is the challenger, and Casey is the incumbent. But it looks like McCormick is going to win this race. But the race was so tight, it was so close that it has spurred a legal recount. There has to be a recount because the race results were tight. Now, the question comes into play is what votes will be counted in this recount? Well, according to this Bucks County commissioner, listen to what she says, and then we'll look and see what the Supreme Court says, and then we'll look at and see exactly what the RNC, Michael Whatley, says and what he may do to make sure this doesn't happen again. Listen to her once again.
Precedent by a court doesn't matter anymore in this country, and people violate laws anytime they want. So for me, if I violate this law, it's because I want a court to pay attention to it. And there is nothing more important than counting votes.
So it sounds like she said four things there. She said precedent by a court doesn't matter anymore in the country. In other words, she's saying whatever a court decides, it doesn't matter anymore in this country. She says people violate rules all the time or anytime they want. And let me say this, ma'am, when they do violate the laws, there are consequences. Precedent does matter in a court of law. Number three, you said if she violates the law, it is because I want the court to pay attention to it. In other words, you're going to violate the law, the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania, because you want them to pay attention to it. Well, if you do that, then you need to be ready for the consequences that follow that. Number four, she said, normally, and more important is the counting is that all votes count, or that the count the votes. And you know, you're exactly right. We need to count the votes. The votes need to be counted. But what votes are those? Those are the legally submitted votes that should count. So this county commissioner has went before and publicly and said these things. But let's turn our attention now to the Daily Caller. And this is important because it talks about the Pennsylvania Supreme Court rejects the Democratic effort to count illegal ballots. Now, this is the second time they have rendered this ruling. Notice if I scroll all the way down, I'll come back up. It says right here at the bottom, it says the Pennsylvania, and it's an ugly color, but it says the Pennsylvania Supreme Court previously affirmed on November the 1st that requiring mail ballots to have handwritten dates is constitutional. So they basically ruled on this November the 1st that the ballots must have handwritten dates, and it is constitutional to hold them to that. Now, this county commissioner comes up and says, no, we need to make sure that all ballots count, all votes count. And here we go. The court held 4-3. The ballots shall not be counted for purposes of the election held on November the 5th, instructing counties to comply with earlier court rulings. The Republican National Committee sued Thursday after several counties decided to count ballots with incorrect dates. Following our latest RNC lawsuit today, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruled yet again that undated ballots cannot be counted, RNC Chairman Michael Whatley wrote in his statement on X. No more excuses. Election officials in Bucks, Montgomery, Philadelphia, and other counties have absolutely no choice but to reject illegal ballots. We will hold them to it. In fact, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court Justice David Wecht, I think, wrote in a concurring statement that it is critical to the rule of law that individual counties and municipalities and their elected and appointed officials, like any other parties, obey orders of this court. Justice Kevin Brobson likewise wrote that local election officials do not have the authority to ignore election code provisions that they believe are unconstitutional. Berks County commissioners, listen to this, voted Thursday to allow misdated ballots to be counted as the race between Democrat incumbent Senator Bob Casey and Senator elect Dave McCormick headed towards a recount. So they've basically said you are not to do this. This is unconstitutional. You must follow the law. Here is Michael Watley's statement on X. This was an update. He says, and this is basically what I just read to you, but he says, following our latest RNC lawsuit today, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court ruled yet again that undated ballots cannot be counted. So these ballots are not to be counted. This county commissioner, this group of commissioners does not have the authority to say these votes must be counted or can be counted. And so this raises a very interesting question. And I think it's one that really needs to be addressed even more fully. And this is the question is, should she face prosecution for saying that, for doing that, for saying these things about the court and even voting in the affirmative to allow these votes to count, undated ballots to count, when the Supreme Court has already ruled on this matter? Notice on Newsmax, they have RNC Chair Watley says PA officials may face prosecution. It says the RNC Chair Michael Watley said on Monday that the Bucks County, Pennsylvania commissioners who allowed undated mail-in ballots to be counted in the recent general election could face criminal prosecution. Watley told the Daily Caller in an interview on Monday, "We have been very clear that uh, we are going to prosecute to the fullest extent of the law folks that are not following the law, that are trying to cheat in these elections. We are trying to uh, pursue every legal means that can help that we can against these officials for improperly saying that they're going to count these ballots." He added that the RNC is exploring whether one of the commissioners could be criminally prosecuted for statements she made in a meeting last Thursday in which she stated that precedent by court doesn't matter anymore in this country because people violate any laws anytime they want. So, with that being said, it's interesting to see what do you think about this county commissioner saying these things and even voting to override the Supreme Court to allow these undated ballots to count when the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, has already said they are not to be counted. And she's saying, let's violate the rule of law. Let's break it. In fact, they may have already done it. I'm not sure. But she wanted the ballots to count. Listen, I want ballots to count too, but I want every legal ballot to count. This is why it is so important to pay attention to election integrity. This is not the end. Simply because Donald Trump won does not mean this is going to end the Democrats pursuing ways in which they can manipulate and change votes or count votes that should not be counted. This is why election integrity is so important on the federal level, on the state level, and on the local level. So I encourage Michael Watley and the RNC, if uh, you've got the video, I think she should be criminally prosecuted simply, if she can be, to set a precedent, to make an example, because this cannot happen in a country of laws. I mean, this person's just basically come out and violating or saying she wants to violate the laws. That is just unbelievable. So let me ask you this question. What do you think about the statements that she made concerning these ballots when the Supreme Court has already ruled on the matter? And then she comes out vocally and says what she does. And do you think the illegal, or yeah, I guess you could call them, they don't meet the criteria for a successful vote to be cast? What do you think? Do you think the RNC should pursue criminal charges against this individual? Leave your comments down in the comments section, and we'll see how this continues to unfold. Hopefully, Dave McCormick, again, I think he's a senator elect. He will continue to be he'll be the next senator, that senator in that seat from Pennsylvania. And we'll see how this unfolds. And leave your comments in the comment section. Let me know what you think about prosecuting this lady who made those statements about just ignoring the law, and whether you think the RNC should pursue this.